My writing didn't really occur until I became in sales and marketing, and I became the manager for one company, and the technical magazines we would advertise in said, write us an article, we'll place your article for you. And so I began to write, and I wrote mostly technical, but some of them I began also to write sales articles and gave them to my reps. Like, have you ever looked at this kind of company? Because I know they're using this kind of equipment. It may be a company like a medical company that you would never even consider, but they need our power supplies as well. The story of my first book, Delayed Diagnosis, is really an interesting one. My daughter was enrolled at San Francisco State, and she had an apartment. I went up there to see her for the weekend, and we went out shopping and whatnot. We came back to her apartment, and I laid down on the couch and fell asleep. Well, on her floor, the sun was beating in through the window, and it heated up my arm, and it woke me. And I started thinking, I had like a small spot on my arm. It was lit up, illuminated. And I got up, I got a pencil and a piece of paper and started writing the story of a guy that sees something on his arm. It's hot and he doesn't know what it is. And that is how the story Delayed Diagnosis started, and that was more than 30 years ago. But it was actually an event that happened to me, and I turned it into a fictional story. Yeah, Blanton Arms is a fictional story I developed, and it starts out with a CIA agent in Russia, and he's about ready to retire, and he's out to dinner one night, and somebody shoots at him. He escapes, and he very quickly leaves Russia, comes back to the U.S. and retires. Well, he gets a call from the director of Secret Service, who knew his talents, who was also an ex-CIA guy, and said, I have a special opportunity for you. Of course, the guy asked, what would this involve? He says, well, it's very secret. I want you to figure out how somebody can kill the president. He says, could you repeat that? He says, yes, I want somebody that can figure out how to kill the president. And he says, what I want you to do is find the holes in the Secret Service that would allow this to happen. And it goes on from there. And then eventually it leads to another challenge for him. Let me read you a small piece. I'm going to read you 2 paragraphs. Jack sat up instantly as the view from the camera showed lights in the rose garden and a congregation of people either standing or sitting at a number of tables. Jack had no idea about the event, but he laughed at his luck. He slowly panned the audience by zooming the camera and began to realize, judging from the dress and the VIPs in attendance, it had to be an event for a visiting dignitary. Panning the camera to another spot, he saw an American flag, and besides it stood a French flag. He then began to pan the camera towards what appeared to be the head table to find the president. There sat Donald Trump, chatting with the president of France. I am only 500 to 600 feet away. 2 shots, and they both would die. The core message of Blanton Arms is really the challenges it presents. As in life, we have a lot of challenges. Some are for action, some are for monetary value, some are for fame. And by accepting these challenges, you grow as a person. Probably a key turning point in my life was age and my relationships had changed, and therefore I felt I could move on with accepting some new challenges, and I began writing. I think one of the people that influenced me the most in my entire life was when I was 18 years old as a Marine. I was hospitalized for a while for a stomach issue, and a doctor called me into his office and said, "Are you drinking too much or whatnot?" And he told me I should reduce my bad habit. And he said also that he felt I was kind of smart and I should get my GED education because I didn't have a high school diploma. He sort of changed my life in that I went back to my barracks. I asked my commanding officer if I could get my GED. He accepted it. I eventually, after getting out of the Marine Corps, I eventually went on to college and had a very successful career. The people that I project in my story are similar to people I have met during my worldly travels, and I've experienced many things from them, and I try to write it down. As in my book, they have varied occupations, and I made use of that because of my knowledge of them and my experiences with them. Well, I had a good friend in Russia, although his name wasn't Boris. In the book he's called Boris, but he was a computer expert, and he loved computers, and so I used him as an example of one of the team that was in the book. I think the emotions is the challenges and the hope eventually that maybe they can pursue their own challenges and be successful like the characters in the book. I want them to feel satisfied that A, they have read a very good story, but B, how does it affect their personal life, and I hope it gives them the motivation to face the challenges they're going to chase in their life. I think one of the things that I would like to see on the screen sometimes is really I came from a very fragmented upbringing. I mean, I didn't really know my parents that well. I quit high school, joined the service, but that turned me around. And so there are moments in your life that you get the opportunity to grow, and I took that opportunity and it led to success. There was a time when I felt I was beginning to forecast what was going to happen in the future in the industry I was in. I was in the power supply industry, and I recall very vividly a phone call on a Friday afternoon from somebody that had read one of my articles in a technical magazine about small power supplies. And the guy told me he was from IBM and was looking for a small power supply. And I asked him if it was for a notebook computer. And he really didn't answer me. And he said, maybe. And he said, do you have a working sample? And I told him yes. And he said, well, can I bring 4 people out to your factory on Monday? Well, this was Friday afternoon, and so I walked into my boss's office. He was the general manager of the company, and said, I have some good news and bad news for you. I'll give you the good news first, that somebody is interested in our small power supply, and now the bad news, it's IBM and they're going to be out here on Monday morning. He says, Harold, you always bring me problems, but they always end up to be good problems. If I can step back, in college I had an electrical engineering degree. That's putting in power lines, building generators, and motors and other things to supply electricity to your house. I would want people to read my book and come away with a warm and hopeful feeling about it and understand the possibilities that exist for them in their own life. You know, the challenges that they face. Don't be afraid of failure, because you always learn something from it, and go on and become successful. The book is a story. Your life is your real life, and it's not fictional. And what I would hope is that you understand and accept the challenges similar to what Jack experienced in the book, that you also can be successful regardless of what your career may be. All of us have the opportunity to be many things. And sometimes we accept a job strictly because of the monetary value that it represents. And yet we may have other dreams, such as being an author, that we can pursue even later in life. I mean, yes, we have a job, we did good at it, we retired at it, but now let's do something that inspires us. And this is what happened to me. I mean, I started writing, and I didn't write one, I wrote 3 books. And each one of them started without me knowing what direction it was going to take. The characters appeared, and I wrote about them. My writing process may be differently, although I don't know, but it may be different than many other authors. I've read up quite a bit on writing and grammar and all the stuff that goes along with being an author. But in my own case, I sit down and write a book, and I don't stop until it's done. I don't plan it out in advance. I don't know how once I start it, I know how it begins, but I don't know how it's going to end. And I don't know what characters are going to be in it. I create them as the moment occurs. If my protagonist runs into a problem, I have to figure out how it's going to solve it and what kind of people are going to solve it. And so now I have a bunch of new characters and a new challenge, etc. And I go on to the end, and I typically do not do a deep editing till I have finished the book. Yeah, writer's block occurs many times in a book. I mean, you may be in the middle of a book and you wonder, well, what am I going to say now? What happens now? And it's very frustrating at times. I mean, sometimes it lasts for a day, sometimes it might last for 2 weeks. But in my own case, in the case of another book, a sequel to Blanton Arms, I felt this could be the end of the book. But it was only halfway through. I mean, it was only 150 pages or something. And I said, how do I do this? And I don't know how, but I came up with the idea that the evil guy is going to outwit the police time after time after time. And so I got him going on a path where every time the police or the CIA or something thought they had him, he was gone. And he would trick them out. And a perfect example of that is the evil guy meets with the protagonist at a restaurant in Belgium because the CIA guy, the protagonist, feels we can follow this guy home because we want to know where his lab is and where he's operating on. So while they're in the restaurant, his car, they put a GPS on it. They don't have to follow him. He's on a computer already, and somebody is watching where he's going. Well, he goes about 20 miles, and he stops at a gas station. And the next thing, the car is headed for southern Germany. And then after about an hour, it stops. and they know where it is. And they send out police or Interpol to try to get it, and they find an empty car. Well, what he had done, he switched cars at the gas station. And he sent his friend in that car. His friend got out of the car, disappeared, while he went to the place where he was hiding. It's something of doing another first. I've done a lot of firsts in my lifetime, and I've never did a photo shoot or told my story, and so it gives me the opportunity, and I hope the story helps others who have challenges in their life, who had bad upbringing or whatnot, that there is hope, that if you put your mind to it and accept the challenge, you too can overcome just about anything. And don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid of anything. Just go out and do your thing. And if you're successful, money will flow to you without you even looking for it. That it will come to you if you're successful at it.